Let's talk some UFL. Let's bring in none other UFL insider for none other than the Houston Roughnecks, Cullen Watkins. Cullen, what's up, man? How are you this morning? Or this evening, actually?
This evening, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I cannot complain, my friend. Hey, look, man. It's amazing to me how literally a snap of the fingers, and we're already about over a month away from the UFL season from coming back. You're around the Houston area. A lot is at stake. You basically almost, I wouldn't necessarily say cleaned house, but brand new GM, a lot of experience at the NFL level. What is expectation this year, especially after coming off of a 1-9 season last year?
Mm-hmm. The expectation is improvement, right? And like you said, we got a new GM. We did not get a new head coach, nor do we get a new offensive coordinator. So right now, the expectations win more than one game, right? That's the goal. But there is a general vibe with Houston fans that this is the make or break year. If this year the Roughnecks don't perform, we don't know what's going to happen to our team. So that's the general consensus. And two, keep in mind, look at what Memphis did. They had a terrible season, and I'd argue that they had more turnover with the coaching staff, and there were more changes there, a sense of urgency in Memphis that a lot of us Houston fans didn't really feel over this offseason. But with that being said, we do have some dogs. We got some dogs. So it should be better than last season. Let's hope.
I mean, especially when you look at overall stats, and I hate to bring this up. I mean, you bring out with the worst record and the second worst attendance in the UFL, and you're certainly right. And I've talked a lot about with other UFL insiders and say that it's not just your team, it's the whole league itself. They're saying, okay, this could potentially be the last year that the UFL exists. This is a money-making thing that we have to come together and do. That's why the merger happened in the first place. You brought in a team that was struggling with or a league was struggling with attendance, and a league that's struggling with money-wise. You brought them together. Okay, maybe we can make something work. Now, obviously, the first year, I personally loved the UFL. I went to a couple of UFL games. I had a lot of fun at those games. And I feel like this year now, with how the TV ratings performed last year, this has to be make or break. But please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it?
I get that vibe. I'm right with you there because at the end of the day, it's about money, right? I know you know that. I know it. It's about making money. And there's some people who say, and I'm sure you hear it too, it's, oh, the people, the butts in the seat don't matter. It's the TV ratings, the TV ratings. Butts in the seats matter, right?
Yes.
They do. They do. So
Butts
I
in the
am
seats
totally
make
with
the
you.
money.
Because it looks good on TV. And when you get in the stadium, you're buying concessions, you're buying merchandise, and you go and tell your friends and family about the great time you had at the stadium. So something has got to change in that regard. Now, hopefully, with the Roughnecks going to play at TDECU, U of H campus, hopefully we see better attendance numbers because Rice, it was not a good facility, but that is not the only reason why attendance is having issues.
Yeah, I'll be there first game of the year for Friday Night Lights, so really excited to be there. Look, Houston's got a lot to work on, especially at that quarterback position. But biggest thing is you guys got Anthony Brown coming in, 26 years old. He's a young guy still. Brings a lot of dual threat capability to a roster that really struggled in quarterback play last year with Nolan Richardson and Reese Sine splitting reps at Q. What has Anthony Brown been like so far? I know that training camp hasn't really started, but from what you've seen collegiately and what you've seen so far through the pros, what is something that he's going to bring to this CJ Johnson-led team?
He brings experience. Last year, we had Reed Sennett, Nolan Henderson, Jarrett Guarantano. These were three guys. And look, I have nothing against any of those three guys. They're talented in their own ways, but they just didn't work with a CJ Johnson offense. What Brown is going to bring, I mean, he played D1 at Oregon. playing against programs like Ohio State. And he played preseason football behind Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, the Ravens. This is a guy who is going to bring leadership. If you can just ignore the physical attributes, he's physically gifted. He's 6'1", so he's taller than Nolan Henderson. He's a 6'1" guy, dual threat. But even if you push all of that aside, his mental game, his ability to read defenses before the snap, I've seen so much film of him. It's amazing. He's able to identify blitzes like that. It's going to come up so handy for us this year. So just even he's physically gifted, but it's the mental part of the game. I think we're going to see that difference. He is mentally gifted in the game of football.
UFO football starts 28 March 2025 says Justin Hall is a beast still for Houston. Excellent receiver. I'm literally just pulling up. He's a slot guy, but the guy is quick whenever he gets out of his break. And I think that's what's so great about him. They're expanding two teams next year. What do they mean by that one?
There's rumors that Seattle's right. They're going to add Seattle and maybe some other place, but I'm not going. I'll see that when it happens.
Do they expand in New Orleans again?
I'd be down. I would love to have a New Orleans Breakers Houston Roughnecks rivalry. I would love to have that.
And I think what's so good about that is just that's what you bring, because this is so much more than just a one league. This is a league that you can go back to the 80s, and then you go back to the WWE years with the old XFL in the 2000s. And that's the one thing that you love is the old rivalry. It just never leaves a fan base if you're a fan of spring football. So back to your current GM now. I mean, this is a guy that is all about Houston. He was a former Roughneck in the 80s. I think he was in the XFL. I could be incorrect, but this guy screams spring football. He screams a Roughneck. Just talk to me about the experience level of Will Lewis and just what he has done so far during this offseason as the GM.
He's cleaned house. Like you said, I mean, he really came in and he's making this team what his vision is, and I applaud him for that. There's a lot of guys who were good last year who are not on this team anymore. Guys like Chris Odom, guys like Mark Thompson, who were sort of cornerstones to the team last season that Lewis and Johnson just said, yeah, we're moving on. So I really like that he's crafting this team the way he wants it. I have a lot of faith in him. My biggest worry still is the coaching staff, because you can have great players, but if the coaching is not there, you're not getting everything out of those players. But when it comes to just player selection, I think Will Lewis has done a fantastic job so far. I mean, he has really cleaned house.
What do you think of Damon Arnett coming to Houston, bringing experience at that DP position, former first-round draft pick?
This is what the UFL is all about. It's all about, this guy's a first-round pick. Got in some trouble, but hey, that's right. This is a second chance for you to show who you are, for you to prove yourself. And I expect him to sort of fill in a spot like Reuben Foster for us last year was. He was our guy on defense. He was our guy. Now, I don't believe Reuben Foster's on the team anymore, but we got him now. So I really think Arnett is just going to be – he's going to be locked down. I mean, he was a first-round pick for a reason. That's the way I'm looking at it. And
right.
He plays the ball so well. Looking at his stuff at Ohio State, he played the ball so well, especially in the end zone. So he's going to come up huge for us. Oh, I'm so excited we got him.
Like you mentioned already, you talk about guys that are just basically cornerstones like a Reuben Foster was last year. Damon Arnett just screams that for me. And there's so many guys around the UFL that are going to be like that. You look at DeAndre Baker, who is at DC right now. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be that guy out in DC. And look, the atmosphere in DC, UFL fans, help your boy out and get me to DC. I got to go check out the atmosphere, and I got to go check out the Beer Snake. Anyways, But yeah, Arnett is just one of those guys. He was a solid corner. There's a reason why he's a first-round draft pick and why he was one of the best corners coming out of the 2020 or coming out of the 2020 NFL draft. Just his footwork and chase or big play capability. Basically, you can put him on an island. He's going to win every time, and a Q is not going to want to throw his way. By the way, UFL football says it's confirmed 2 teams for 26, no location confirmed, but the league announced expansion for 2026. So it's still a make or break year. Nothing, it's confirmed, but we'll see what the future of the UFL holds. But opening game against St. Louis, you're obviously going up against another franchise that struggled last year with Anthony Becht and company, who just fell a little short in the conference finals. This is the team that cleaned house too. No more A.J. McCarron, a brand new defense. Realistically, going into Friday night, what is something you're wanting to see from this Roughnecks team opening day once they take the field?
I'm wanting our offense to know who they are. First game against the Battlehawks. No longer, because I remember the excuses last year. It's like, oh, Coach Johnson, he has a new team, new personnel. It's the first season yet. No more of those excuses anymore. I want this offense to go out. We know who we are. We know we're not an air raid offense. We know we're not a run and shoot offense like the Roughnecks were in the past. Use Justin Hall and run the football. And let Anthony Brown do his thing. Don't try anything crazy. That's all I ask for week 1. Don't do anything crazy. Because the Battlehawks, like you said, they're going to be in a similar situation. We have home field advantage. So just know your role. Know who you are as a team. And we'll succeed.
Look, I know who CJ Johnson is. He's been around the New Orleans area, which is where my state is. Guy's a heck of a coach. Former receivers coach with the Saints, won a Super Bowl. He's got a national championship. Here's a guy that coached Andre Johnson. Here's a guy that coached many first-round receivers while he was at Miami. Here's a guy that was that coached guys at the next level with the Saints, like a Lance Moore, like a Marcus Colston, guys that basically were nobodies on that Saints roster and turned them into the weapons that Drew Brees was able to throw the football to. And without that, you don't really have an offense like that. Former Tulane head coach. Like he's been around the South majority of his career. He's from LaPlace. So I know him fairly well from his experience in the New Orleans area. I think the biggest steal in what you guys got as a coaching staff, Tom Cable as your run game coordinator. I have loved Tom Cable as a longtime O-line coach. He is a Raider true and through. I love what he brings to this offensive line. What's the running game going to look like with him as your run game coordinator as well as your offensive line coach?
I agree with you. I'm super excited about that pickup for the coaching staff. And this run game is going to be crucial. We had no run game last season. We had Mark Thompson, but he was injured more than half the time, and it did not work. I have one name for UFL fans to watch this year when it comes to the running game for the Houston Roughnecks, and that's Kirk Merritt. Kirk Merritt, a wide receiver, running back combo. I'm expecting him to take the reins in the running game. Coach Johnson has already said a lot of great things about him. He was having a great season last year before he broke his arm or wrist against the DC Defenders. But he's going to be back. Hopefully this O-line and this running game, the coaching is better. So Kirk Merritt, he's explosive. I am super excited for him. I think he is going to change this running game for this Roughnecks offense. And everything else goes with the running game, as you know, as well.
He's a Destrehan guy, too. He's literally about an hour and a half from where I live. So really familiar around that Louisiana area. You mentioned about how this is a second chance league. Just talk to me about some of the notable guys that the Roughnecks are getting that could be potentially getting their second chance as they potentially because look, I've been around the league already, like I mentioned. These dudes do not care about what they get in the money wise. They're not having no contract disputes. They just want to make it to the next level. They want to go back to the NFL. And that is what the beauty of the UFL is that it's just a pure league that everybody can enjoy. There's no politics involved. There's no money disputes involved. And that's what's so good about the UFL. So talk to me about that second chance opportunities that these guys are getting.
So with this Roughnecks roster, surprisingly, we don't really have that many more NFL guys besides the ones that we mentioned, but we actually have a lot of returning guys, either from the Roughnecks or from other teams. Avery Genesee, he was with the Roughnecks in 2020 under PJ Walker. He has followed the Roughnecks every single year since 2020. This is his chance, right? I mean, he is fighting for a spot in the NFL. TJ Vasher, a wide receiver, he was on the 2023 San Antonio Brahmas. The Brahmas in 23 weren't the best. So he's looking for another chance to show his talent. He was a beast at Texas Tech. He was a beast there. It's a great opportunity for him to show who he is. Corn Elder, another DB. He showed out last year, and I'm looking for him to show out even again. So there's a lot of spring football veterans now on this team that hopefully they make it to this next level now with multiple years under their belt. And you are so right. They're doing this for the love of the game. It is for the love of the game. It's not for the money. When they lose, you know it hurts.
That's exactly why the motto of the league is for the game. So Cullen Watkins of the Roughing 'Em Up podcast, check him out on YouTube. He hosts with another good friend of ours, Arlington Lane, the A-Train. He is Mr. Roughneck himself, actually. Look, like I mentioned, I'll be there at Tedecchio for that first game. Battlehawks are coming in. Probably should be one of the favorites to head back to the UFL title, maybe to repeat, or not repeat, but get close to a potential shot at a title. I think that fan base deserves it. It's obviously a tough test, but realistically, what's the strength of this team? What is the strength of the Roughnecks going into 25?
I think the strength of this team is what I said, what they need to do week one. And that if they know their offensive strengths, I'm not too worried about the defense. Their offensive strengths of the short passing game and running the ball, utilizing Justin Hall, surgical passing, that is the strength of this team. Again, this team is not going to throw 350 yards on your favorite team. That's not the identity of this team. If the Roughnecks want to win this year, they got to be surgical and they got to be precise on offense. And notice how I'm not talking about the defense because, again, the offense needs to step up if we want to win. I'm not worried about the defense. It's the offense that needs to hold their weight this time.
Let's take a look at the schedule for the Roughnecks as we take a look here. Like I mentioned, first game, they'll be playing the opening game will be at Tedecchio. Then you go to Arlington, Memphis for a 2-game trip, back at home against Birmingham. I think that Birmingham game is going to be interesting to me because I think that's going to be really what you see and where this team is going to be in 2025 and what the expectation is, whether it's a good or a bad. That's what you have to get. Then you go to San Antonio, Memphis, back to Birmingham, Michigan, D.C., and back to Michigan. Realistic expectations, what are they?
I'm not going to put a number on it, but I will say this. Seeing the 2 Michigan games at the end, we hope that we're fighting for a spot in the USFL playoffs by that point. So those 2 Michigan games could really have a lot of impact. Let's see here. The Showboats, I hope to split the series with them, but I think the Showboats are going to be good, man. I think they're going to be really good this year. And then, of course,
I love Ken Wisenhut's offensive strategy, and I love what he's going to bring. I think, look, I love Coach Flip from last year. The dude actually popped off at me last year during a press conference. I don't even know if you saw this. I
I
was at the
saw it. I did.
Birmingham game. That was me.
Yeah.
And it was amazing just seeing it. But I don't know if Coach Flip was really invested in there. That's why they decided to go for a different out to go get Ken Weisenhunt, which probably one of the biggest hires of the UFL season in coaching, just coaching in general, not just head coaches, because I love his philosophy. I love what he's going to bring. I think this offensive line is going to be a hell of a lot better than what you saw last year.
I totally agree. And I was thinking about it today. Look, the Roughnecks more than likely aren't going to be fighting for a number one spot.
No.
I think that's well known, right? But the sort of breaking point, the big point in the USFL conference, how are the Panthers going to be and how are the Showboats going to be? I think Stallions take number one spot again, right? I mean, duh. But Showboats and Panthers, Roughnecks have a chance to play some spoiler there. So I'm really excited for those two teams to see how they are.
Before we let you go, Cullen, early odds. Who's winning? Is it a four-peat for Birmingham, or do we have a new champion this year?
I'd say so. I'd say that they're really in line for a four-peat. I mean, they've won 3 in a row for a reason. They got Alex Magoo back. That is essentially.
You could put Alex Magoo anywhere at this point after we saw what he did with the Packers during preseason.
And you got Corral. He could win a championship on his own. And then you add Magoo in there. He can win a championship. You add Skip Holt. It's a dynasty in Birmingham. And I honestly think the only teams that have a chance of dethroning them are in the XFL conference in the championship. Either the Brahmas with Wade Phillips or the Battlehawks. But I would not be surprised if we see another Brahmas Stallions championship. I think they are by far the best teams in the league. By far.
This thought actually just came to mind. Does PJ Walker come back to Houston?
If PJ Walker comes back to Houston, man, I don't know what I'd do. I don't think he is. I think he's established up there in the North in the CFL. But if PJ Walker came back to the Houston Roughnecks, I think we'd have a new number one in the USFL conference. I'm pretty confident in that.
Cullen Watkins of the Rough 'Em Up podcast. By the way, UFL fans, I'm going to be at that opening game on Friday, March 28th between the Houston Roughnecks and St. Louis Battlehawks. You can catch that game Friday night, the opening game of the UFL season. Excited to get down to Tedecue, chop it up with some fans, chop it up with some of you guys. Cullen, been an honor having you on the show, man. Y'all check out Rough 'Em Up podcast over on YouTube. They got some great stuff going on. Also, check out the United Football Media as they are part of that as well. Cullen, take care of yourself, brother. Have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you in just over a month.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.